Hare Krishna. Suddha Bhakata Charanarenu Bhajana Anukula. Suddha Bhakata Charanarenu Bhajana Anukula. Bhakata Seva Paramasiddhi Premalati Karamula. Bhakata Seva Paramasiddhi Premalati Karamula. Madhavati ti bhakti janani jatane palana kori. Krishna basati basati boli parama adara boli. Gora Maharaja Sabastane Koralo Bhavanarange. Se Sabastana Hiri Boami Panayi Bhakata Sange. Mridanga Bhaja Sunite Mana Abasara Sada Jache. Dora Vihita Kirtana Suni Anande Hridaya Nache. Jugala Murti Dekhiya Mora Parama Ananda Hoya. Prasada Seva Korite Hoya Sakala Prapancha Jaya. Jedina Grihe Bhajana Dekhi Grihete Goloka Bhaya. Sharana Sidhu Dekhiya Ganga Sugana Sasima Paya. Tulasi Dekhi Duraya Prana Madhavato Shani Jani. Gora Priya Saka Sevane Jivana Sarthaka Mani. Bhakti Vino Krishna Bhajane Anukula Paya Jan. Pratidivase Paramasukhe Svikaro karo yeta. Shuddha Bhakata Charana Renu Bhajana Anukula. Bhakata Seva Paramasiddhi Premalati Karamula. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Translation of the song Shuddha Bhakata from Saranagati, written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Dust from the lotus feet of pure devotees is conducive to devotional service, while service to the Vaishnavas is itself the supreme perfection and the root of the tender creeper of divine love. I observe with great care the holidays like Ekadasi and Janmashtami, for they are the mother of devotion. As my dwelling place, I choose with the greatest of reverence and love the transcendental abode of Sri Krishna. All those places where my Lord Gosundar traveled for pastimes, I will visit in the company of loving devotees. My mind always begs for the opportunity to hear the music of the Mridanga. Upon hearing the kind of kirtan and ordained by Lord Gaurachandra, My heart dances in ecstasy. By beholding the deity forms of the divine couple Sri Hare Krishna, I feel the greatest joy. By honoring the Lord's Prasad, I conquer over all worldly illusions. Goloka Vrindavan appears in my home whenever I see the worship and service of Lord Hari going on there. Upon seeing the Ganges, which is a river of nectar emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, my happiness knows no bounds. The sight of the holy Tulasi tree soothes my soul, for I know she gives pleasure to Lord Krishna. By honoring Sak, a dear favorite of Lord Chaitanya, I consider life worthwhile. Whatever Bhakti Vinod obtains that is conducive for the service of Sri Krishna, he accepts every day with the greatest of joy. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Today we are reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamritam, written by Srila Sapsadup Das Goswami. This is the volume 4, entitled In Every Town and Village. And this is the chapter entitled London, a Dream Fulfilled. The second moon landing by American astronauts was scheduled for mid-November, only a few weeks away. For months, the moon shots had received much press coverage, and Prabhupada would speak of them often. Almost a year ago in Los Angeles, he had answered a reporter's queries on the possibility of man's landing on the moon. Prabhupada says, just like we are going from one place to another by motor car or by airplane, this mechanical process will not help us go to the moon planet. The process is different, as described in the Vedic literature. One has to qualify. According to our literature, our information, it is not possible. In this body, we cannot go there. At Tittenhurst, Prabhupada often brought up the moon landing while talking with his disciples. The moon landing was a hoax, he said one evening in his room, for they cannot go to the moon. The moon planet, Chandraloka, is a residence of the demigods, higher beings than these drunkards and cow-eating slaughterers who are trying to inhabit it. You cannot think this travel is allowed. Like when I migrated from India to the US, the moon planet cannot be visited so quickly. It is not possible. Sri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Sri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai. Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's disciples accepted his statements. He was giving not simply his opinion, but the verdict of the Vedic scriptures. Because he accepted Vedic authority over modern science, so did his disciples, but not Purushottam. Detecting Purushottam's dubious mentality, Prabhupada would often joke lightly in Purushottam's presence. Someone would ask a question, "Where is Janaki?" And Prabhupada would reply, "Oh, Janaki has gone to the moon." Then everyone except Purushottam would laugh. The devotees knew of Purushottam's difficulty. He was an American and proud that the Americans were conquering space. And they knew that Prabhupada was joking about it. Purushottam was up on the latest scientific advancements. He was impressed by NASA's achievements and astronaut Neil Armstrong's giant step for mankind. Although Purushottam went on with his duties, he became sullen, and Prabhupada noted his lack of enthusiasm. One morning, Purushottam and Yamuna were together with Prabhupada in his room. Purushottam had several days' growth of beard and was wearing the same orange sweater he had slept in, whereas Yamuna was neat and clean. Although she had only 2 simple cotton saris, she would always put on a freshly washed and ignore one before going to see Prabhupada. And iron one before going to see Prabhupada. Looking at his 2 servants, Prabhupada said, "Yamuna, you have so many saris. They are all so beautiful." Yamuna looked up at Prabhupada in surprise. "I don't have so many, Srila Prabhupada." "No," he said, "you are wearing a new piece of cloth every day. It is so nice. You are always looking so neat and clean. And your tilak. Purushottam, what do you think? Who do you think has the best tilak?" Purushottam did not answer. "Beautiful tilak," Prabhupada said, means beautiful person. About 6 o'clock that same evening, Yamuna was cooking puris and potatoes for Prabhupada when she heard him ring the servant's bell. Leaving the ghee on the fire, she ran up to Prabhupada's quarters. He talked with her about the lecture he would give that evening and eventually asked, "When will prasadam be ready before the discourse?" "Yes, Srila Prabhupada, I am." "Yamuna smells smoke." "Oh," she gasped. "Please excuse me, Prabhupada. I have left some ghee on the fire." Rushing downstairs, she found the kitchen filled with black smoke. She couldn't see the stove. "Purushottam, Purushottam," she cried. Purushottam arrived, and together they groped through the smoke. Somehow, Purushottam extinguished the fire because it caused serious damage. Purushottam and Yamuna were covered with soot. Their faces were black, and Purushottam's orange sweater, his robes, and Yamuna's sari were all blackened. Suddenly, Prabhupada rang the servant's bell, and they both hurried upstairs to tell him about the fire. When Janaki returned downstairs and saw the mess, she ran upstairs to Prabhupada's room, where Yamuna and Purushottam stood, still covered with soot, before Prabhupada. "What has happened here?" Janaki burst out. Prabhupada looked at her soberly and said, "Today, Purushottam has gone to the moon." "What?" Janaki asked. Prabhupada repeated, "Yes, our Purushottam has gone to the moon." Prabhupada, Purushottam said, "I am a brahmachari. Why are you saying these things?" "Being a brahmachari is no restriction from going to the moon. Anyone can go," Prabhupada said, winking. The devotees regularly encountered John and Yoko. Although originally interested in a business relationship, John was inclined towards the devotees, but his friends advised him not to get involved with the Swami and his group, so he remained aloof. Ishan Das says, "I was in the kitchen working, and John was sitting at the piano. He had a piano in the kitchen, a great upright piano with all the varnish removed, bare wood. And in this way he was sitting at the piano, playing Hare Krishna. The man was actually a great musician, and he played Hare Krishna in every musical idiom you could think of. Bluegrass music, or classical music, or rock and roll, or whatever. He would go on at will from one idiom to another, always singing Hare Krishna. It was so natural for him and one could see that he was a musical genius. And in this way, he was entertaining me, and he was obviously really enjoying it. So anyway, while his piano playing was going on with great vigor and enthusiasm, this chanting Hare Krishna, his wife, Yoko Ono, appeared in a nightgown or what have you, and said in a very distressed tone, "Please, John, I have a terrible headache. Can't you stop that sort of thing and come upstairs with me?" George was different. And that is the end of the talk by Ishan Das. George was different. He was drawn to Prabhupada. When one of the devotees had asked, "Why out of all the Beatles are you only interested?" John had replied, "It is my karma. One of the things in my sign is the spiritual side." End of quote. George Harrison says, "Prabhupada just looked like I thought he would. I had like a mixed feeling of fear and awe about meeting him. That's what I liked about later on after meeting him more. I felt that he was just more like a friend. I felt relaxed. It was much better than at first, because I hadn't been able to tell what he was saying, and I wasn't sure if I was too worldly to even be there. But later on, I relaxed and felt much more at ease with him, and he was very warm towards me. I wouldn't talk differently to me. He wouldn't talk differently to me than to anybody else. He was always just speaking about Krishna, and it was coincidental who happened to be there. Whenever you saw him, he would always be the same. It wasn't like one time he would tell you to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and then the next time say, "Oh no, I made a mistake." He was always the same. Seeing him was always a pleasure. Sometimes I would drop by thinking I was not planning to go, but I better go because I ought to. And I would always come away just feeling so good. I was conscious that he was taking a personal interest in me. It was always a pleasure. End of quote. George was attracted to Krishna, and he liked to chant. Even before meeting Prabhupada, he had learned something of Krishna from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. from the autobiography of Paramahamsa Yogananda and from traveling in India. But Prabhupada's instructions, in particular, impressed upon him that Lord Krishna was the absolute truth, the origin of everything. George says, Prabhupada helped me to realize the multifaceted way to approach Krishna, like the prasadam, for example. I think it is a very important thing, prasadam, even if it's only a trick. Like they say, the way into a man's heart is through his stomach. Well, even if it's the way to a man's spirit soul, it works. Because there is nothing better than having been dancing and singing or just sitting and talking, and then suddenly they give you some food. It's like it's a blessing. And then when you learn to touch him or taste him, it's important. Krishna is not limited. And just by Prabhupada's being there and pouring out all this information, I was moved. It's like the mind is stubborn, but it's all Krishna. That's all you need to know. It's all Krishna. This world is his material energy too, the universal form. And in Prabhupada's books, there are these pictures showing Krishna in the heart of a dog and a cow and a human being. It helps you to realize that Krishna is within everybody. Although Prabhupada might have been teaching some higher aspects, what came through to me a lot was a greater understanding of how Krishna is everywhere and in everything. Prabhupada explained about the different aspects of Krishna, and he provided a meditation where you could see Krishna as a person everywhere. I mean, there is not anything that is not Krishna. End of quote. Prabhupada saw George as a nice boy and a devotee of Krishna. According to the Bhagavatam, no matter what a person may be materially, if he is a non-devotee and never utters the holy name of God, he cannot possess any good qualities. Many Swamis and yogis in India, even some who consider themselves Vaishnavas, had no faith in or understanding of the holy names of Krishna. But George liked to chant Hare Krishna, and he had put the holy name of Krishna in his songs, which were tremendously popular all over the world. So he was serving Krishna through his music, and that made all the difference. Prabhupada says, Mr. George Harrison appears to be a very intelligent boy, and he is, by the grace of Krishna, fortunate also. On the first day, he came to see me along with John Lennon, and we had talks about 2 hours. He wanted to talk with me more, but he has now gone to his sick mother in Liverpool. End of quote. Prabhupada also saw George as a rich man, and Lord Chaitanya had strictly instructed devotees in the renounced order not to mix with worldly men. But Lord Chaitanya had also taught that a devotee should accept any favorable opportunity for propagating Krishna consciousness. Quote from Prabhupada. If this boy cooperates with our movement, it will be very nice impetus for, after all, he is a married man. These married men have to be very cautiously dealt with in spiritual life. We have to sometimes deal with them on account of preaching work. Otherwise, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly restricted to mix with them for Krishna conscious people. But we get instruction from Rupa Goswami that whatever opportunity is favorable for pushing on Krishna consciousness, we should accept. End of quote. Prabhupada dealt with George cautiously, but encouraged him to chant the Lord's name, take his prasadam, and surrender all his works to him. When the devotees in the US heard of Prabhupada's dealings with the Beatles, some of them exaggerated the closeness of the relationship, especially in the case of John Lennon. Prabhupada heard of this and immediately stopped it. Quote from Prabhupada. Regarding the booklet you and Gargamuni are sending, in the introductory portion signed by you and Gargamuni, you have said that I am personally instructing John Lennon and George Harrison in the yoga of ecstasy. This is not very satisfactory. Of course, George Harrison sometimes comes to see me, and naturally I instruct him on the bhakti yoga. But the statement in the letter gives hints as if I have been invited by them for this. If this comes to their notice, they may take some objection, which will not go to our credit. This thing should not be publicly advertised, and I do not know why this has been done. Anyway, if you have not distributed many of them, you just try to take out the portion which is not a fact. End of quote. George says, Prabhupada never really suggested that I should not do what I was doing. I heard that at different times he would say to the devotees that I was a better devotee because of my songs and the other things I was doing. He never actually said that to me, but I always heard that. And the good thing for me was that I did not have a feeling that I needed to join full time. I think it would have spoiled it if I had always been on at me saying, why don't you pack in and doing what you are doing and go and live in a temple somewhere? He never made me feel any different, like I wasn't quite in the club. He was never like that. I'm a plainclothes devotee. It's like that. I saw my relationship, that I should help when and where I could, because I know people in society. It's like any half-decent person. You just try and help each other a little bit. He was always pleased with me, because anything I did was a help. I mean, not just to the Krishna temple as such, but just to anything spiritual that I did, either through songs or whatever. It pleased him. He was just always very friendly. He was always chanting, and at times he said that to me, just to keep chanting all the time, or as much as possible. I think once you do that, you realize the chanting is of benefit. There are some gurus who go around making out that they are it, but Prabhupada was saying, I am the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, which is really what it is, you know. He wasn't saying, I am the greatest and I am God and all that. With him, it was only in the context of being a servant, and I like that a lot. I think it's a part of the spiritual thing. The more they know, then the more they actually know that they are the servants. And the less they know, the more they think that they are actually God's gift to mankind. So, although he was obviously a very powerful individual, very spiritually advanced, he always retained that humbleness. And I think that is one of the most important things, because you learn more than all the words he says. You learn really from the example of how he lives and what he does. End of quote. The Daily Sketch reported, Krishna people dine out at John and Yoko's place. A photograph showed the devotees seated out of doors taking prasadam. Quote from the paper. Lunchtime at Tittenhurst Park, stately home of John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And some of Lennon's house guests take their places in yesterday's sunshine. The picnickers are followers of the Indian Swami, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta. They have adopted the ways of the East, from their clothes and shaven heads right down to the Indian curry they eat with their fingers, which is all rather out of character for a place like Tittenhurst Park, which cost John £150,000 and covers 60 acres of most exclusive stunning hill near Royal Ascot Race Course. End of quote from the newspaper. Prabhupada and his people and John and Yoko and theirs made an odd combination. 2 days after Prabhupada's arrival at Tittenhurst, John and Yoko had flown to Canada to perform with a Plastic Ono band at Toronto's Rock and Roll Revival at Varsity Stadium. In October, John and Yoko had recorded a wedding album and begun work on a film, Rock and Roll Circus, and John had recorded Cold Turkey. Although John was usually shy, the devotees working at the main house found him open-hearted and generous with his possessions. He invited the devotee to stay permanently at Tittenhurst and farm. Whatever he had, he said, he would share with them. One day, Yoko asked Yamuna if a devotee couple could stand in for her and John on stage at a London theatre. She and John had previously appeared there dressed in only a burlap bag and were supposed to make another appearance. But Yoko thought perhaps a devotee couple could take their place. The crowd, she said, might never know the difference, and even if they did, it would be a hilarious publicity stunt for the devotees. Politely declining, Yamuna explained why devotees could never do such a thing. When she told Prabhupada, he was adamant. None of his disciples would go. For days afterwards, he condemned this sensuality. John invited Prabhupada to the manor to hear his recent recording of Cold Turkey. Although such a song held little interest for Prabhupada, John whimsically wanted him to hear it. Taking the opportunity to preach to the great man of the world, Prabhupada went. Within John's main sitting room, Prabhupada sat on the couch before the fireplace. The tape was ready on the large 16-track machine that had recorded it, and as Prabhupada sat patiently, John began to work the controls. But the machine would not play. John began cursing under his breath, turning knobs and pushing buttons. Although only Purushottam had accompanied Prabhupada, 2 other devotees hid outside beneath the windows listening. When they packed in and saw John struggling with the machine, they began jiggling in the shadows. Oh, Prabhupada said, so your machine is not working? Well, never mind. We have also made some recording, and we would like to play this music for your pleasure. John resigned himself to listening to Prabhupada singing, and Prabhupada was saved from the cold turkey. Prabhupada kept his visit short. As he was leaving, he saw on the wall framed life-size photos of John and Yoko naked. He also saw black and white silhouettes of a man and woman in various positions of sexual intercourse. On returning to his room, he commented, "It is not good for us to continue staying here." He asked Mukunda to find him an apartment in London. The very place renovations were still incomplete, and Prabhupada said he preferred to be in the city so that he could oversee the work. The natural setting of Tittenhurst was pleasant, but Prabhupada's host way of life and his were incompatible. One day, John and Yoko, dressed in black, came to visit Prabhupada. Acknowledging him to be a great yogi with mystic power, they asked him to use his powers to arrange with Krishna that they be reunited after death. Prabhupada was disappointed. "This is not my business," he said. "Krishna provides you with life, and he takes it away in the form of death. It is impossible that you can be united after death. When you go back home, back to Godhead, you can be united with Krishna. But husband and wife, this is simply a mundane relationship. It ends with the body at the time of death. You cannot pick up this kind of relationship again after death." So 9 o'clock, we can end here this reading. So these are very wonderful descriptions of Srila Prabhupada in England and specifically in London. Srila Prabhupada's idea to go to London was not new. That was Prabhupada's plan, that to go to the West would certainly mean to go to London. Prabhupada knew very well that England and especially London were places where people were very much proud of their culture and power. They had dominated the world in many ways, and India especially. They were very proud to have colonized India and introduced in India many modern amenities for the pleasure of the Indian people, just like train and many other things had come to India because of the influence of the English people. So English people were also sometimes telling that England is such a place where the sun never sets. Why they are telling like this? That was the idea, was that because England has colonized many places throughout the world, so throughout the world, any place, the sun is there very bright. Any place in the world, at least 1, 2, 3 places in the world. And these places were colonized by England. Therefore, they were saying, England is such a place where the sun never sets. When Prabhupada came to England, he looked up. Where is the sun? So Prabhupada said, England is such a place where the sun never rises. That was Prabhupada's comment. That was very humorous on the part of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was not ordinary yogi or guru. He was very expert in the preaching in many different places, and he was always humorous, thinking himself not so important. Whatever I'm doing, this is by Krishna's grace. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Hare Krishna to be preached everywhere in the world, every town and village. So if I'm doing this, and that is also the order of my spiritual master, so I'm not important in this mission. It is all by superior authority. That was his conviction. In this way, he could be humorous. Humor is different from irony. Ironical person, they will criticize, they will play, they will laugh at others. A humorous person will laugh at himself. That is the difference. And those who are intelligent, they appreciate humor, not irony. At the same time, we can understand that Prabhupada and his devotees, followers, disciples in Tittenhurst, they were somewhat not fitting with the place and with the association. Prabhupada had great appreciation for Yoko Ono and what's his name? John Lennon and George Harrison. They were appreciating the fact that they were chanting Hare Krishna. They had recorded Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and because they were so famous and very excellent musicians, they had been propagating the sound vibration of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra throughout the world. So that was a very great asset that these Beatles had, and a very great service that they had done. And the other great service is that they were very favorable, very kind and charitable, welcoming Srila Prabhupada and his disciples and inviting them to this property belonging to John Lennon called Tittenhurst outside London on the countryside. It's a very beautiful place and very charming, and Prabhupada liked it very much. But Prabhupada had also a mission to accomplish, not only in association with the Beatles, but he had to go to London, and there in London establish a temple and go every day on Nagar Sankirtan. And this way, that was also Prabhupada's mission. So, to have also Jagannath Rath Yatra and other festivals, in this way establish Hare Krishna Society, ISKCON Society in London, the capital city. So, at the beginning, there was no place for Prabhupada to stay in London, so he accepted that invitation by John Lennon to stay in Tittenhurst, and Prabhupada was very appreciative of this. But at the same time, after a few days, he could understand that this place is not for us. The Beatles are not following the regularity principles. They have their own lifestyle, and so we cannot stay in their close association. So Prabhupada decided that let us go to London, and that was the next step in Prabhupada's mission in England. So regarding the moon landing, see there's a description of Purushottam. He was a senior disciple and very obedient to Prabhupada. He rendered many intimate services to Srila Prabhupada as a servant. And but at the same time, he had the false ego that I am American and the Americans have gone to the moon. Therefore, I'm very proud of this. I'm very proud of being American. It's a great glory. So he had this false ego. So that became an obstacle in his devotional life. And later on, it will be seen that Purushottam left the association of Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON Society because he was very much upset that Prabhupada did not accept the moon landing. So, in many ways, afterwards, it was proven that Prabhupada was right. Actually, they had never gone to the moon. It was all a publicity stunt. And because of this, Russia was also in the same line. So who would go first to the moon? He would be very famous. So either Russia or USA. So USA and the Americans, they had a trick and did some shooting in a place that resembles the moon planet, and they advertised it, and they said, we have gone to the moon. So that's what a very big publicity. And in this way, they became victorious to some extent against the competition with the Russian people. So, but Prabhupada was completely 100%. He gave many arguments, and one should also know how Prabhupada defeated this idea. He gave evidence that the moon planet is a heavenly planet, and therefore nobody can go to heaven without punya, sufficient punya. And certainly these American astronauts didn't have that much punya to go to the moon. It is not possible. Prabhupada said sometimes, they may have gone to Rahu, the demon planet, which is not far from the moon planet. They may have gone there because it's a demon property. So they may have gone there, but not to the moon. Then, just like Prabhupada said, that Ravana also wanted to construct a staircase, mechanical staircase to go to the moon. That was only a demoniac idea. So I remember that when we were in Vrindavan in 1972, October, we were having a morning walk with Prabhupada and other disciples, and we were near the Madan Mohan temple in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada was looking up, and it was on the day of Purnima, very auspicious day, Kartik Purnima. So Prabhupada looking up and appreciating the full moon, oh, so bright and so beautiful. So Prabhupada said, you see, the moon is so bright, so beautiful. And Prabhupada then said, see, in Washington, there's a museum. In that museum, there is an exhibition of the moon rock. They say that they have gone to the moon and they brought some rock from the moon planet, and that is exhibited there. And when you see that rock is so dull. It's a dark and dull. How such a rock can reflect the sunlight and make the moon so bright? It is nonsense. So that was the conversation we had in this morning walk in Vrindavan. So we can still remember Srila Prabhupada's word. I can never forget. So in this way, you should know all these arguments against this demoniac idea. This body is not meant to go to the moon. It is only fit for the Earth planet. Even we cannot go swim like a fish in the ocean. We cannot fly in the sky like birds. We have to walk on the land and under certain conditions and so on. How can they go to the moon? This body will not allow. That is not possible. So many arguments like this Prabhupada has given so that his disciples could understand this foolishness of the moon landing. They had advertised a small step, a giant step for mankind. One step on the moon means a giant step for mankind. but this is complete nonsense publicity. So, Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments? We can appreciate how Srila Prabhupada is dealing with the Beatles. One side is in a very favorable manner, that he preaches to them, chanting Hare Krishna. He's telling them Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we should dedicate ourselves to Krishna's service, and some basic philosophy Prabhupada is telling the Beatles. At the same time, he is not telling them, why don't you join as a disciple? You forget everything else, you join ISKCON. In this way, your life will be perfect. No, Prabhupada is not telling them like that, because Prabhupada can understand that actually they are already doing very good seva as professional musicians, and then also they are not ready to surrender everything and join as a disciple. They are not ready for that. They are very busy in their profession and they cannot give up that profession. It is not possible. So Prabhupada very intelligently, he understands how to deal with them to get a maximum seva, help, and at the same time keeping them in a very happy mood, not offending them in any manner. Prabhupada told them also when we were in India, when he started the life membership program, that you be very careful. These men, very rich men, were capable to take up the life membership program. At that time, 555. Then after some time, 1111. The people you are going to meet are very big people. Not only they are rich, they are also very well known, and they may be very proud of their position and so on. But they are also ready to help ISKCON, and they are certainly, they will become life member if you speak to them in a very favorable manner. If you say one word that is offensive, Prabhupada told us very, very clearly, one single word, they will not forget that throughout their lives. And this was something that was very difficult for us to understand. But we tried to understand it. And even though we could not, how is it possible? One single word throughout life they will not forget? How is it? But Prabhupada was right. And these big people, important people of the society, they are like that. And Prabhupada knew it very well. And in this way, he taught us how to preach, enroll life members, knowing how to speak in a sweet language, not exactly flattering language, but presenting Krishna consciousness in a very sweet manner, and not telling even a single word that would offend the the party. So that was very important quality that Prabhupada had. And for anyone, it was something that is very rare. You meet people like this very rarely, who can deal in such a favorable manner and not offending any manner, at the same time trying to get some help, but not in pushing to such an extent that he'll become offended and so on. So this quality of Prabhupada is very exceptional, and we can try to understand it. Any other comments? All right. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.